Part 14. Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 131. While the three were talking, the guards on the guillotine were ready for the execution. Google search reading. For a moment, everyone from the Paladin commander on the stage to the onlookers below the stage fell into a morbid excitement. Ready. With the Paladin commander's shout, the spectators stopped cheering and waited with bated breath to see the most exciting scene. Zing's in. Stop. Before the Paladin finished shouting the word seeing, Tia shouted in advance and jumped out of the crowd. Who is it? The Paladin commander was furious when he heard this, and when he saw Tia jumping out of the crowd on her own initiative, he immediately looked over. It's you. The man was stunned when he saw Tia, and then became ecstatic. Tia Max, you actually dare to come back. Ridiculous, why shouldn't I dare to come back? Tia snorted coldly, but you, if you are addicted to blood, why don't you go to the front line to fight monsters? What's your ability to hide at home and slaughter civilians? Shut up, dirty half-blood. Just you, dare to question Lord Daniel, the holy judgment. The bald blue-eyed white paladin was furious. Humph, what a bullshit holy judgment. A so-called trial like yours that only kills civilians for fun, what a bullshit of holiness, Tia retorted. How dare you? It has always been our paladins who are in charge of the laws of Rogue Town, and we, an alchemist, will not allow you to interrupt casually. Guards, okay. Bald Paladin Daniel turned around and wanted his men to put down the guillotine. Let's see who dares, Tia shouted, and wanted to jump over to stop it. The bald paladin sneered at this, but drew out the knight's long sword and slashed at Tia. Disrupting law enforcement, attacking law enforcement officers, even if you are a Nephilim, you have violated the sacred law, surrender. Just you. As the second female voice came from the crowd, a figure rushed towards the bald paladin. The man held a long-handled sword and swung it upward, sending the bald paladin flying with the sword, and then protected Tia. It was the barbarian female warrior Minerva. The bald paladin was not as strong as the female warrior, but his skills were not bad. After being swiped away by a sword, he spun in the air and landed steadily on the ground. Seeing the appearance of the person coming, he couldn't help but say in hatred, Minerva? You didn't defend the monsters at the front line, but dared to come back privately. You are deserting the battlefield. Humph, you guys, you used to rely on the protection of Lord Catala to do whatever you want, and you have completely fallen. Now you are deserting the battlefield again, interfering with law enforcement, attacking the judge, and committing countless crimes. This is simply intolerable. Guards. Take them down. Yes. At the bald man's order, the armored soldiers holding swords, shields or spears around drew their weapons and surrounded Tia and the others. The bald man himself rushed to the guillotine, pushed away the soldier who was about to execute the execution, and was about to drop the guillotine. Seeing this, Tia immediately shouted, "Save people." Understood. Ruger in the crowd immediately took off his cloak and put on the homemade Iron Man armor at the same time. He stretched out his hand from his back and pulled forward, and then leveled the machine gun on the weapon rack behind him, pointing the muzzle directly at the guillotine. Boom! With a roar of artillery fire, the guillotine on the wooden platform disintegrated and fell in an instant. Boom! The second shell followed, and the guillotine that had already fallen off was blasted out of the guillotine. Clang! The guillotine fell from the sky and inserted into the wooden platform, just protecting Tia, and even cut off several spears of the guards in front. What is that? The bald man who avoided the collapsed wooden frame was shocked. Huh, you don't have any experience, right? This is the weapon of the Lost Ones. The advanced version, Tia said proudly. The weapon of the Lost Ones, the crowd of onlookers exclaimed again when they heard it. Isn't that just an ordinary human weapon? How can ordinary human weapons be so powerful? Does that mean that we can do the same if we have that weapon? Of course, didn't you see that the one using that weapon was Lady Tia's companion? Haven't you heard about how useful Lady Tia's weapons are? Yes, yes, my neighbor is just an ordinary person who hasn't awakened. He used the weapon Lady Tia gave him and killed several monsters. Although he died in the end. Yes, yes, I've heard that Lady Tia's weapons are particularly useful. It seems that even many of the rogues have switched to her weapons, otherwise the front line would have collapsed long ago. But I heard that they were actually Lady Catala's work. In order to enhance Lady Tia's reputation, they pretended that they were made by Lady Tia. Otherwise, why did the alchemy workshop no longer sell Lost One's weapons after Lord Catara passed away? Is that so? Don't listen to his nonsense, that's all rumors spread by some people. What? There are no Lost One's weapons after Lord Catara passed away? That's because some people don't provide raw materials to the workshop. Carson, aren't you known as the best carpenter on West Street? I won't give you a piece of wood, so you make me a wooden object and show me. Without wood, what wooden object can you let me make? That's right. If some people don't provide raw materials, how can Lord Tia make Lost One's weapons? Didn't you notice that the closed sign at the door of the alchemy workshop has been hanging for several days? I'm afraid Lord Tia has gone out to find materials for herself recently. Look again now. The Lost One weapon on the Iron Man's shoulder is the new model that Lady Tia just made. Yes, I heard that those guys who escaped and built their own shelters dared to open up the wasteland by themselves because they got a batch of Lost One weapons. What, so that's the case? I said that they were obviously not awakened like you and me, but they dared to build a new home in the wilderness where monsters were rampant. That's it? Then, do you think Lady Tia is the sponsor behind them, so she came back to save people now? Yes, it's possible. What's the possibility? Lady Tia is the awakened Lord Nephilim. Why would she go out and play house with a bunch of cannon fodder instead of enjoying the good life in Rogue Town? You don't know this, right? I heard that Lady Tia actually has half Lost One human blood. She is mixed blood. What the hell? Are you sick? Who among us doesn't have human blood? Even which awakened Nephilim doesn't have human blood? Aren't we all mixed blood? Hush, keep your voice down, are you going to die? Dare you say that Lord Nephilim is mixed blood? I tell you, humans are different. It is impossible for a Lost One human to awaken into a Nephilim. What? But Lady Tia has awakened. So she is a mixed blood. If she was pure-blooded, I don't know how strong she would be now. Well, that's why she is so good at Lost One weapons. Is she trying to make up for her own lack of strength with these? Yes, that's probably the case. What a pity, what a pity. What's a pity? Aren't the Lost One weapons strong enough? Yes, yes, that thing is obviously very strong, okay. What do you think, if we go and ask Lady Tia, will she also make some weapons for us? Then we can also. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi Ji. Chapter 132. Hearing that the crowd of onlookers had departed because of the Lost One's weapons, the bald paladin became even more furious. Lost One's weapons. Advanced version? I now seriously suspect that you stole town resources to secretly manufacture prohibited magic weapons. You immediately hand over those magic weapons and tie your hands and feet to wait for your punishment. Otherwise, you will be a complete traitor and everyone will be able to kill you. What? Is this also your sacred judgment? Tia snorted disdainfully. Do all of you paladins think you are the embodiment of the law? Any word you say is equivalent to the law. Listen to the nonsense you just said. When did the world have something called magic weapon? You can make up any concept to accuse me of a false crime, right? Do you really think you paladins have become the masters of this place? Let me remind you that this place is called Rogue Town. Rogue is the real guardian here. Tia's words seemed a bit out of context, but they were actually quite smart. Even Ruger was a little surprised at Tia's high political sense. Because the guards who were responsible for escorting the prisoners on the guillotine were mostly novices in the Paladin power system, but the rogues were still responsible for guarding the entire square and even the entire town wall. As soon as Tia's words came out, although the Paladin sequence was furious, the faces of the surrounding rogue sequence Nephilim immediately eased. As a result, the arrows in their hands were slowly put down, no longer aiming at Tia and the others. Ruger knew that the Nephilim in Rogue Town were divided into two factions. The core of the Nephilim supremacists was the Paladin sequence. The rogues generally remained neutral, but they had long-term friendships with the other faction that advocated living in harmony with ordinary humans and developing their combat power. After all, the rogues once had a nickname that they did not like, the Amazon warriors with incomplete awakening. In the early years, they also watched the fully awakened Nephilim run rampant and were secretly sad. A considerable number of rogues were more or less ridiculed by some Nephilim supremacists. Although the rogues became more and more powerful over time, and the gap with the complete Nephilim became smaller and smaller, they still did not like Nephilim supremacism in their bones. So Tia's few words could easily make at least half of the opponent's combat power return to neutrality instantly. The bald paladin also understood the key point at this time, and couldn't help but snorted coldly. Even if Rog didn't make a move, you can't escape today. As he said, he raised his sword to the sky with his right hand, hit his chest with his left hand, and shouted, "Glory to heaven, shining temple." Then the dark sky was suddenly thundering, and a blue-white lightning fell from the sky and hit the tip of his sword directly. However, he was not like an ordinary person who was struck by the lightning and turned into a charred corpse. Instead, he seemed to be instantly charged by the lightning and became full of energy immediately. The blue-white lightning did not dissipate, but turned into countless flashing snakes, wandering around on his metal plate armor. Ruger could even foresee that if Minerva raised his long sword to chop him again at this time, he didn't need to fight back, and the lightning on his outer armor alone would be enough to make the female warrior drink a pot. But who stipulated that he must be beaten in close combat? Seeing the bald paladin using the Thunder of Heaven move, he was about to charge towards Tia. Before Minerva could rush forward, Ruger, who was still under the wooden stand, raised his gun and fired another shot at the guy. Boom! Dang! Ruger felt something was wrong when he heard the sound. He looked closely and saw a showy paladin in a glittering silver armor, holding a shield that was also glittering silver and blocking the bald man in front of him. The silver shield was tall and wide, and could even block most of Minerva behind him. At this time, the shield was raised in front of the bald man, and it actually blocked Ruger's 30x173mm caliber PGU-13/B high explosive incendiary, hey, bomb. The automatic machine gun on Ruger's Iron Man armor was a single-barrel rapid-fire gun made of the World War II Mk103/38-30mm aircraft cannon. The caliber adopts the NATO standard, and the ammunition is simply the ammunition commonly used by the famous GAU-8 Avenger 7-barrel rotary cannon on the nose of the A-10 Thunderbolt II ground attack aircraft. PGU-14/B armor-piercing incendiary, API, and PGU-13/B high explosive incendiary, HE. The high explosive incendiary warhead is 370 G, and the muzzle velocity is 1070 meters per second. Not counting the performance of the charge, the muzzle kinetic energy alone is 200 kilojoules. That's right, it's 200 kilojoules, which is almost 700 times the kinetic energy of a 9mm Parsons bullet and more than 100 times that of a small caliber rifle bullet. This shot, even if it is just a single shot, is more powerful than any individual light weapon used by Ruger. Not to mention, it also has nearly 60 grams of internal explosives, which is even more than the charge of a high-speed grenade that can kill and penetrate armor. It was incomprehensible that a powerful shell that should have been fired from the main gun of the Cougar infantry fighting vehicle or the rotary gun of the A-10 Thunderbolt II ground attack aircraft was blocked by a shield. Especially on the silver shield, there was no dent, not even a stain blackened by the explosion. This shocked Ruger. However, after he calmed down, he quickly realized that no matter how hard the shield was and how powerful it was, there was no way that there would be no traces left after receiving an explosive incendiary bomb from him. But it still shines silver, which only shows that the real hay is not the shield itself, but the person using the shield. Sure enough, after seeing the shield, not only the bald paladin, but also all the Nephilim guards of the Paladin Order present knelt down half kneeling, covering their left chest with their right hand to perform the Knight's salute. You can even see what they are muttering silently. Your Excellency Saint Austin, you actually came in person. The bald paladin was the first to recover from his nagging state and said to Silver Shining. Brother Daniel, and all brothers, please get up. Yin Shining pressed down his shield, said something to the surroundings, turned his head and glanced at the machine cannon on Lugger's shoulder, then looked at Tia and said, Sister Tia, when did you come back? Why don't you come and say hello to Brother Austin? Only after the guy lowered his shield did Lugger see his face clearly. Not to mention, even after seeing various perfect artificial humans in later generations, Lugger had to say that this guy really has a handsome face. Moreover, it is not the kind of weak and effeminate beauty that is called a naughty boy, but the traditional handsomeness with wisdom in the martial arts, such as Zhou Gongjin's handsomeness in both civil and military affairs. The most ridiculous thing is that the guy seems to be of Eastern descent, the kind of mixed-race person who conforms to both Western aesthetics and Eastern preferences. Her silver hair was also meticulously combed, and paired with a full set of shining silver plate armor, she was indeed covered in silver from head to toe, and was extremely attractive. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 133. Sister Tia, don't call her so affectionately. I'm not familiar with you, Lord Austin, the Paladin commander. Hearing the handsome guy's gesture of kindness, Tia waved her hands in disgust and boredom. Presumptuous. Before Yin Shining could speak, a witch in cool clothes who came with him stood up first and scolded him. That witch was none other than the ice mage Anya, who had trouble dealing with Tia. At the same time as he scolded him, the guy raised his staff and quickly formed a spear of ice and shot it in the direction of Tia. However, not long after the ice spear flew out, there was a bang and was scattered in the wind by an explosive incendiary bomb. Oh my God, isn't this a witch? Why do you do it as soon as we meet? It's so uncivilized. Don't do this next time. Lugger, the shooter, joked like a little ruffian. It's you. Anya immediately recognized this guy. It was the human who used the weapon of the lost who had made her angry before. However, after her expression changed, she didn't rush to seek revenge from Lu Ji. Instead, she whispered something into Yin Shining's ear. After a while. Oh, this is the lost one you mentioned. Yin Shining nodded, looked at Lugger and said. Friend, I can confirm that I have never seen you in Rogtown. I wonder where my friend comes from and what does he want to do when he comes to us. One sentence is both a bottom line and a tactic of alienation. The implication is to let people around him know that Lugger is an outsider. Lugger was not fooled, and had no intention of answering this meaningless question. Well, I'm not familiar with you, so it's not convenient for me to tell you. Then he smiled again and said, oh, by the way, can your friend go back first? That's the beauty who is holding a horn shortbow behind me and preparing to kill me with a secret arrow. Your big shining silver shield can block one of my cannonballs, it's really powerful. But I think you can feel the power of my shot to some extent, right? Think about what would happen to your friend if that shot hit her directly without the protection of your shield. Oh? Really? Yin Shining neither agreed nor objected, neither admitted nor rejected, he just spoke ambiguously while pinching his forehead with his hands. This is your fault. Lugger sighed, you are the eldest brother, right? You should be responsible for your subordinates. I've warned you. If you don't pull your hand back, you're still playing tricks on me. What's the use of using a code to ask her to move from my right rear to my left rear? Do you really think I can't find it? Or do you think I was just threatening you with lies? My friend has good eyesight. Realizing that he could really see it and not just by chance, Yin Shining immediately stopped testing and waved to the person, asking her to withdraw. As for whether Ruger's eyesight is good or not, although it was almost a problem in the past, it has indeed improved a lot recently. After leaving Sarah's place on the front line, the three of them also stopped by the so-called second shelter established by the human resistance. That place, as mentioned before, was attacked by monsters and fell. There is no need to elaborate on the situation for the time being, but Lugger took advantage of this period of time to severely strengthen his physical attributes. He has accumulated enough points. He was reluctant to buy the property-enhancing potion that cost 100 points per shot, but now he can directly exchange it and use it as a nutrient solution to replace 3 meals a day. So, when the three of them returned to Rogtown, his physical and mental health had both reached 10 points. In addition, he also took the time to add 1 point to each of the other 4 attributes. Among them are perceptual attributes. Attributes: Strength 6, Agility 8, Physique 10, Spirit 10, Intelligence 7, Perception 7. With a perception of up to 7 points, he could count the number of barbs on a hard-haired mouse hiding in the grass from more than 10 meters away. But even so, it wouldn't be enough for him to have eyes directly behind his back, so he could easily spot a killer-type high-level Nephilim who was good at assassination and concealment. The one who really discovered that guy was Tia's pet shadow lynx Launoisy. Everyone in the audience was astonished to see him discovering the famous assassin so easily. Especially those who know how powerful the assassin is. For example, Silver Sparkle himself. Although he pretended to be calm and stretched out his hand to call back the assassin, the look he cast towards Lugger from time to time still revealed his truest thoughts. This person is not simple. You must be careful. As for the truth about the eyes behind his back, only 1.5 people on the field besides Lugger himself knew what was going on. Just like Tia, she was always trying to control herself not to laugh out loud. Because she could even directly see how funny the old now noisy looked squatting on Luigi's head. And I understand how annoying it is to have it chattering above my head describing various reconnaissance situations. She was the only one who had suffered this loss before, but now she felt relieved to see others sharing this unique feeling. The other half is Minerva, who knows about the existence of Launeokeo. It's a pity that she couldn't see it herself, so she could only resist the urge to roll her eyes and continue to protect Tia, who was flirting with someone. The assassin summoned by the paladin was obedient and ran back to Silver Shining in 2 or 3 seconds. Looking at her clothes, she was clearly an Amazon female warrior who had not joined Rog's army. "Thank you, Natasha." Silver Sparkle nodded to her. The Amazon female warrior didn't speak much. She nodded her head and automatically and consciously protected the paladin behind her, as if she were a senior bodyguard. "Okay, now we can talk about business." Lugger looked at the man and nodded. "Oh? What's the matter?" Silver Sparkle asked. "Could it be that you want to take the initiative to explain how you sneaked into the city? You didn't destroy our city wall, did you?" Silver Shining pointed at the rapid-fire cannon on Lugger, and casually said something to incite the townspeople to be hostile to Lugger. "How could it be?" Lugger waved his hand. "Maybe you have little knowledge, and it's not your fault. But I have to explain to you, my shells are not that cheap. I don't want to waste money on boring things like opening holes in the city wall. Haha, Lu Ji responded with a gentle reply, and Yin Shining snorted with a smile on his face. In this case, someone helped you sneak in. There's something you need to know. This is a state of emergency. All Nephilim must leave records regardless of whether they enter or exit the town. Especially those that have been focused on, the guard has the obligation to report to me in a timely manner after recording. The three friends don't seem to have just come in. Can you tell me which Rog on duty neglected his duty and failed to comply with the regulations? I would like to make amends beforehand to avoid making the same mistake next time, which will affect the safety of Rogtown. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi Ji. Chapter 134. Pa. Google search reading. After hearing this man casually provoking the relationship between Rogue and himself and others, Rogue could not help but clapped his hands in a sarcasm. Your Excellency is really good at putting accusations on others in a high-sounding manner. No wonder you are a leader. So all your paladins learned from you. Google searched can. I have one question for you, Paladin Commander. Should the rogues in Rogue Town listen to your orders first? Or should they listen to Commander Rogue first? Or should Rogue Town be renamed Paladin Town? You bastard! What nonsense are you talking about? Stop trying to sow discord here. The bald paladin immediately stood up and scolded. Brother Daniel, please calm down. Silver Flash was still calm. Of course, the rogues should give priority to the orders of Commander Rogue. However, my orders have also been recognized by Commander Rogue. So. No need for so. Ruger waved his hand and stopped him from continuing. Your words are enough. Rogues should give priority to the orders of Commander Rogue. So, of course, they will not report our whereabouts to you. Because, this is Commander Rogue's order. As he said, Ruger nodded to Tia. Seeing this, Tia immediately reached out and took out the pendant Blood Crow arrow talisman given to him by Sarah, and held it high to everyone. It's the Blood Crow arrow talisman. It's the arrow talisman of Lady Sarah. Why is it here with Tia? Didn't Lady Sarah disappear? Yes, it was the news brought back by the witch Anya herself. What is going on? The rogues around were talking about it, and finally looked at the witch Anya beside Silver Shining, their eyes full of suspicion and vigilance. At this time, even Silvery Sprouse frowned, and he looked at Anya with a somewhat impatient look, and asked her. Anya, what's going on? Lord Austin, I didn't lie, Anya explained with 7 points of grievance in fear. Blood Raven Sarah really fell into the crack in the ground. The Blood Raven arrow talisman she took must be fake. Oh, Anya. I haven't seen you for a few days. Has your intelligence decreased again? Or is your eye broken? I'm such a big person standing here, and you didn't see it? Minerva shook the long-handled sword in her hand fiercely, attracting the witch's attention. It's you, Minerva. Anya was shocked. You didn't follow. I didn't fall into the crack in the ground with Sarah, right? Minerva said. So, what do you think happened? This. Anya was shocked, turned her head to look at Silvery Austin, not knowing what to say. Just when she was panicking, the Silver Shining Paladin turned around and smiled at her. Okay, I know everything. That smile looked as fake as it could be in the eyes of Rugsha and others. However, Anya, who was just panicking, was immediately calmed down by the smile. She stared at the paladin for a long time with a crazy look on her face, then nodded, stepped back 2 steps and stopped talking. This situation made Rug and Tia feel puzzled, and they all raised the threat level of the paladin by 1 level. So, you rescued the Blood Crow Sarah who fell into the crack in the ground. As a return gift, she gave you her token. Silver Shining turned around and looked at the 3 people. So, you used this token to stop the rogue guarding the city gate from reporting your whereabouts to me. Well, if that's the case, the rogues didn't do anything wrong. But the voice of the chief paladin rose another octave. According to the State of Emergency Act, you will still be questioned for your wanton abuse of the rogue token. The Arbitration Joint Committee will decide whether you have violated the rules. Now, please put down your weapons. I can guarantee that my guards will not embarrass you. But before the Arbitration Joint Committee questions you, you can only stay in the residence prepared for you and are not allowed to go out. If you do something wrong, you must pay the price. Especially as a guardian, Nephilim, you will never allow wanton behavior to occur. After listening to this, Ruger couldn't help but sigh. This guy puts a hat on others and stands on the moral high ground himself. He is really professional. And he also relieved the conflict between Ruger and Rogue provoked by him. Retreat to advance, pull the ladder up the roof, and turn the tables. All in one go. Good guy, this paladin has also learned the art of war. Ruger could even imagine that if he really admitted this hat and surrendered and waited for his fate, then the opponent would definitely come up with some tricks to fish in troubled waters out of nothing. They have detained the people, and if they are charged with any crime, then they can only let them do whatever they want. If they really make up a more reasonable and uncontroversial hat for them, the three of them are not afraid of being killed. At most, they will have to rearm and attack again, but Tia and Minerva will be miserable. After all, they are natives of Rogtown. How uncomfortable it would be to be charged with an inexplicable crime and never be able to go home again. This bastard, this is killing people and destroying their hearts. Ruger stared at the guy fiercely for a few times, knowing that he would not get any benefit if he continued this topic. But he changed his mind and snorted again. He thought, is it possible that you are the only one who knows the art of war, but I don't? Look at my escape. If I'm lucky, I can directly attack the enemy by a false route. So, he smiled and didn't give the other party any time to react. He pointed at the humans he saved. You said that you have to pay the price for doing wrong things. I guess you support your bald subordinate to slaughter these humans. Please pay attention to your words, this is a trial. Yin Shanshan saw that he was trying to change the subject, but his words put a hat on himself, which made him have to accept it. Trial? As long as you put a damn hat on the people being slaughtered before the slaughter, you can make the slaughter reasonable and legal. Ruger continued to smile. You mean they are not guilty of the crime? Then you have to show evidence. While speaking, Yin Shanshan glanced at the bald man, who lowered his head with a guilty conscience. Ruger saw it and thought, could it be that this guy didn't know? No, judging from the way he fought and defended before, he couldn't have not known. Maybe, he was disgusted that his subordinates were not decisive and good enough, and brought unnecessary trouble to himself? Thinking through this, Ruger simply straightened his face. No, not only are they not guilty of the crime. They are innocent, they were framed. A stone stirred up 1,000 waves, and the spectators started to make noise again. What? Framed? Who would frame them? Do they have money or do they have treasures? Yes, I clearly saw them leading a group of monsters out of the edge of the forest and rushing directly to Rogtown. How could they be innocent? Even if they were in a panic, they shouldn't have led the monsters to the town. That's right, even if they were hiding from the monsters, they couldn't betray us, right? Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi Ji. Chapter 135. Well, you heard it, this is the voice of the people. Listening to the shouts of the onlookers around him, Yin Shining said proudly. Don't worry, Ruger waved his hand unaffected, if you really want to protect justice, you shouldn't deprive them of their right to defend themselves. With that said, he turned to look at Tia. Tia nodded to him, walked to a human death row prisoner, untied his rope and helped him stand up. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Then he said to him, I have a few questions to ask you, and you have to answer them truthfully. The man obviously knew Alchemy Studio Taya, and he immediately nodded and said, Lord Taya, ask me. Taya nodded, turned to look at Yin Shining, and seemed to be saying to him, do you still have the patience to listen? Yin Shining over there had actually lost patience a long time ago and was about to find an excuse to kill them all. As a result, she was tricked by her pretense at the right time, and it was impossible not to listen. Because he had already seen several figures appearing on the high platform in the core area of the town to the south. After all, those few are still the well-deserved top leaders of Rog Town. Seeing this situation, he could only swallow his other plans and raised his hand to signal Taya to continue. Okay, Taya didn't waste any time, raised her hand and asked the human. Question 1. When did you start living in that so-called second shelter? About 20 days ago. As soon as these words came out, the surrounding crowd was in an uproar. 20 days. They actually survived 20 days in the wild. Some of the spectators even exclaimed, how is it possible? How could a monster in the wild allow them to survive for 20 days? That's enough for 2 days, right? Listening to the comments of the people around her changing again, this time it was Tia's turn to wink at Silver Shining proudly, quite provocatively. That means, just wait, the fun is about to come. Yin Shining still looked at them calmly, as if he didn't care about these things at all. On the contrary, it was the bald paladin beside him, with beads of sweat appearing on his forehead. Question 2. Taya then asked, how many times have you encountered monster attacks in the past 20 days? No, no. No monsters have attacked us in 20 days. That human being was decisive. But as soon as he finished speaking, his expression darkened again, except for the last time, it was the time a few days ago. Tia understood that just this time, the new home they finally built was destroyed again. Even they, the survivors, became prisoners. However, even so, his words caused an uproar among the onlookers around him. What? No monsters attacked them for 20 days. The chatter among the crowd was even more complicated this time. Why, are the monsters out of strength? What, is it possible that there are fewer monsters in the forest? Maybe they were not found. Didn't find them. Monsters have such good noses, especially in the forest. How could they not be found for 20 days? Hey, I heard that there is an exorcism potion in the alchemy workshop that can block the feelings of monsters so that they cannot detect the Nephilim in the wild. Ah, yes, I have also heard that there is such a thing. Come on, do you know how expensive that thing is? And the validity of that thing is not very short, only a few hours at most. It can only be used for a few hours, and one bottle is worth 3 days of supplies for a Lord Nephilim. Can they afford it? A group of ordinary humans. Then, maybe some alchemist is funding them. Forget it, you might as well say there is an alchemist guarding them 24 hours a day. That would be easier and save money. What is going on? Could it be that there is something special about their shelter? Listening to the people around her talking about heading in the direction she had arranged in advance, Tia nodded with satisfaction. The voice in the crowd that guided public opinion was naturally arranged by her in advance. Well, no, she didn't arrange the people, but their words did. These people are the so-called spies left by the human resistance in Rog Town. However, as the first base outside the town established by the so-called human resistance army was destroyed, these people have fallen silent. If Minerva hadn't taken over this line from the human rebel Kohler, they might have returned to ordinary life forever. Taya didn't let everyone wait too long this time. Listening to the discussions around her, she was guided to the key point, and asked the third question. How did you do it? How did you prevent the monsters from attacking you for 20 days? This is the core issue that the surrounding people are most concerned about. I'm not sure about this either. The human gritted his teeth and hesitated to speak. Are you not sure, or are you afraid to say it? Taya asked. Are you afraid that if you tell something, some people won't be able to forgive you? I have to remind you, if nothing else happens, your head has now said goodbye to your neck and been thrown into that basket. This, Lady Taya, I'm not afraid of death, the man said with sweat on his forehead, but, I'm afraid that I'll be silenced before I finish speaking. While speaking, the man also looked at the paladin's side, almost pointing at their noses and scolding them for assassinating him. Ouch, Ruger couldn't help but look at Taya, as if to say, did you arrange this actor in advance? How come you are so smart? Taya just rolled his eyes at him and didn't say anything. They exchanged glances easily here, but the paladin team over there was uncomfortable. Hey, why are you looking at us? Are you hinting that we should shut you up? The bald paladin, who was also sweating profusely, scolded in a restrained manner. Enough, Daniel. You have no right to speak here. For the first time, Paladin Austin called him by his name and scolded him harshly, frightening the bald man so much that he couldn't help but shrink his neck, quickly shut his mouth, lowered his head and stopped talking. But the eyes that lowered his head were full of ferocity and resentment, as if he had already begun to calculate how to take revenge. Please speak, Austin said to the man, pretending to be friendly. In the name of the Knight of the Templar Order, I guarantee that you can finish your words and will not be interrupted by anyone. Then I said, Lady Tia. The human turned to look at Tia, and seeing the latter nodded at him, he mustered up the courage to say. We have not been attacked by monsters for 20 days because we built our shelter in a lost ruins. Many people believe that lost ruins are not easily attacked by monsters because there are ghosts in lost ruins. So it is still not safe there. But the ruins we went to are very small, and there are no ghosts in them. And we are still not attacked by monsters. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi. Chapter 136. What? The lost ruins will not be attacked by monsters. Why haven't I heard of this? Yes, if that's true, then why do we have to stay in Rogue Town? We can find a slightly larger lost ruins, clear out the ghosts there, and build a new home there. In that way, there won't be so many deaths due to lack of manpower in battles. Everyone's life will be much easier. Why not do that? It's definitely impossible, otherwise why? Will the lords of the Nephite and the lords of the Paladins lie to us? Will they not? Will they? At this point, the discussion of the crowd seemed to suddenly become more than half smaller. Yes, what if it's true, if the lost ruins can really make everyone's life easier? Why not do it? Why hasn't anyone heard of this? Although the crowd's voices have become smaller, the burning eyes looking at the paladin seem to be getting stronger. Enough, if the truth you want to tell is all this mythical nonsense, then there is no need for us to listen to it anymore. The paladin leader Silver Shining is now regretting his actions. Although he had expected that the other party would show up prepared, he did not expect that their main attack point would be this matter. It is no secret among the Nephilim that the Lost One's ruins will not be attacked by monsters. However, for most Nephilim, this feature has no practical significance, and most people are too lazy to think about the reasons behind it. But in fact, the high-level officials in Rogue Town know what this means. Even a considerable number of ordinary humans in the current population of Rogue Town are descendants of the Lost Ones who escaped from such ruins. This is not a big deal, but in the current situation, it is said, especially to let so many ordinary people who have long forgotten their history know, the effect is completely different. However, It doesn't matter, the paladin said secretly, the reason why these humans can forget their history is ultimately because of their own weakness. They have no ability to protect their own history, so their past and present lives are only worthy of being dressed up by themselves and others. As long as this matter is resolved, this storm can still be easily covered up. Thinking of this, the paladin gradually regained his previous confidence. However, Tia will not let him off. "Why, you forgot what you just said in a blink of an eye," Tia snorted coldly. Just now someone guaranteed that this person's words would not be interrupted in the name of something. Who is it? Although it was a question, Tia's eyes were always looking at Silver Flash. The meaning was also very clear: it's you, it's you, it's you. You. Anya wanted to stand up to protect her sweetheart, but Austin held her arm with his hand. "Okay, you continue." Austin, who regained his confidence, said in a deep voice, "But I want to remind you that I only promised to let you speak out, but I did not give you the right to speak nonsense without punishment. If you speak nonsense without evidence, I will still punish you." This is more of a threat than a warning, and it is even a pre-description of a hat that will be put on in a while. However, Ruger and others knew this very well. These human death row prisoners were almost in trouble. "I am not lying," the human shouted loudly with a firm face. Seeing him so determined, Ruger couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He thought, why did this person take it seriously? He just wanted you to die, and he didn't really care how many bowls of noodles you had in your stomach. The man continued, "My grandfather was a druid Nephilim. He once successfully obtained food seeds with other Nephilim masters. Although he died too early in battle and failed to awaken my father, he also left a lot of experience and inheritance. He said that many Nephilim know that monsters don't like the Lost Ruins. Because they stay in the Lost Ruins for a long time, they will gradually become weaker, and even become easily killed by ordinary people. But it's not just ordinary people who will have such changes. Nephilim masters stay in the Lost Ruins for a long time and become weaker. This weakening will even be irreversible when it accumulates to a certain extent." "What? There is such a thing?" The doubts in the crowd rose again. It seems that with the disclosure of this information, the previous doubts about why the Nephilim did not develop the Lost Ruins shelter for humans have been reasonably explained. Yes, if staying there will cause the Nephilim's abilities to be irreversibly weakened, they certainly won't want to open a shelter there. After hearing this human directly reveal the secret that was not a secret, the paladin's relaxed expression became serious again. He turned his head and glanced at another paladin in the crowd behind him. Seeing that he was hunched over and about to kneel down at any time, he snorted coldly and made a gesture that he would settle the score with you later. The paladins are intentionally establishing a new order similar to the caste system. The highest level is naturally the powerful Nephilim. However, even the powerful Nephilim cannot guarantee that their offspring will successfully awaken. Some unlucky individuals may not even have any descendants who can awaken. However, as long as one of the bloodline sources can awaken, then there will always be a possibility for their descendants to awaken. So in the new order of the paladins, even if they are not awakened and are just ordinary humans, if they are direct blood relatives of the Nephilim, they will be taken care of to a certain extent. The person that Tia brought out is a third-generation direct blood relative of the Nephilim, and should not have been excluded from the human resistance. The descendants of the Nephilim will inevitably know some secrets that only the Nephilim know. In order to unite the Nephilim and divide the Nephilim from the unawakened humans, these people cannot be pushed to the enemy side. But the result is now like this. It can only mean that the person who handled this matter did not really follow the instructions of the Paladin Captain Austin. They made a mistake. Although this matter is not big and the impact seems to be very bad now, as long as the Paladins are given a little time, it can still be easily calmed down. But the incompetence of his subordinates, or their own little thoughts, exposed by this incident made Austin intolerable no matter what. At this time, he had secretly made up his mind to clean up the increasingly unreliable Paladin order under his command. On the other side, Tia ignored the debate among the human spectators around him and continued to ask the man. "So, you want to rely on your ordinary people's power to open such a shelter?" "Yes, that's it," the man said. "But, you failed. The monsters still attacked you, didn't they?" This is not normal." The man's face immediately became ugly. "We have tried before, even if we deliberately lure a monster around the shelter, it will not take the initiative to enter." Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 137. We even yelled at it near the shelter area, trying to provoke it. Although it would rush over, it would not stay for long and would quickly escape. The human continued to explain. Google search reading. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow dot. They don't like places like ruins physiologically, so how could a bunch of monsters suddenly appear and pour into the shelter? Maybe the monsters you angered ran back and called for help, Tia said deliberately. Impossible, we have killed those monsters with the weapons of the lost. How can we go back and call for help? Okay, let's stop here. Tia ignored the spectators who were in an uproar again, nodded to the prisoner, turned to look at the paladin. Next, I will add a few words for him. As we all know, alchemists have a formula for exorcism potions that monsters hate. In fact, there is another potion that can attract monsters. If we add some extra magic stone crystals and spread them evenly around this lost camp, the monsters that are unwilling to go in will become aggressive and rush in. We went to that place to see it when we came back. I can tell you responsibly that the shelter was surrounded by these magic-attracting potions. Their shelter was not discovered and occupied by monsters because of bad luck. It's that someone took the alchemical potion and framed them, deliberately letting the monsters rush in and destroy their home. Sure enough, these guys came for this matter. The head paladin thought bitterly. This is your one-sided statement. He quickly adjusted his mood and retorted in a deep voice. I knew you would say that. Don't worry, I have enough evidence. As she said that, Tia took out something similar to a projector, hung a screen on the broken guillotine, and began to play the previously recorded video. That was the video of her taking samples when she found potions around the shelter. In the video, she carefully put the sample into a special container and put a unique seal on the container. While playing the video and explaining, she also took out the container in the picture and showed the unique seal to everyone, showing that she did not do anything in this matter. This is all done by yourself. You are an alchemist. You can do this kind of thing casually. Ordinary people can't tell at all. The bald paladin scolded with sweat on his forehead under the pressure of Austin. Ha, thank you for praising me so much. Tia chuckled, not caring about his words at all, and continued. Indeed, there are many alchemists specializing in potions in Rogue Town, but there are really few who dare to say that their level is better than mine. They said that I tampered with the potion and they couldn't see it, and I really don't want to refute them. But, have you forgotten someone? She is the strongest and most undisputed alchemy potion master in the entire Rogue Town. I didn't intend to get your recognition of these evidences from the beginning. But she will definitely be able to see it. As she said, Tia turned her head and looked at the old woman dressed in a nun's robe on the high platform in the central area. Lord Akara, please take a look. The old woman on the high platform in the central area was Akara, the earliest leader of the rogue camp, the senior nun of the Blind Sisterhood. That is the one who sold various potions in the original game. Hearing Tia say this, the old woman nodded to Rogue beside her. Seeing her say something, a rogue immediately jumped down from the high platform, ran to Tia in 2 or 3 steps, took the evidence from her hand, and brought it back to Akara for inspection. Not long after, the old lady nodded to Tia again, indicating that what she said was true, and then turned and walked back to the central building. It's true. Seeing that Akira clearly recognized Tia's statement, the onlookers became noisy again. It turns out that those people were deliberately framed. Seeing that Akira recognized Tia's statement, but did not come out to mediate, but turned back to the central area, the faces of several people on the paladin side became even uglier. They knew that the old woman meant that they needed to give an explanation that satisfied everyone. And after the matter was handled, they needed to go to the mayor's house in the central area to report the situation to the old woman in full. In short, it means that they have to solve the problem, be held accountable, and take responsibility. Seeing the two people around him looking at him secretly in fear, Austin gritted his teeth and said to Tia, "Okay, since the evidence you provided has been recognized by Lord Akira, we can assume that these humans were framed. Since they were framed, they subconsciously fled from the forest to Rogue Town, which can also be considered to be deliberately guided by someone. Then, the charge that they lured monsters to attack Rogue Town can be considered not established. They are not guilty, and the death penalty is cancelled." Great. Long live. Hearing the paladin say this, the crowd on and off the stage burst into warm cheers. Although there were many noises of beheadings that were unfortunately not seen, they were quickly drowned out by the cheers. But after the enthusiasm of the paladin and other people dissipated a little, they immediately said, "Who used what potion to frame them? There is no evidence now. Do I need to ask?" Tia snorted and interrupted the paladin. "Look at how panicked your men are. The bald man is almost turning into a water ball. Plus, he wants to kill all these people regardless of the consequences. Isn't it a typical murder to silence them? As for the potion. Hee. Although the witch next to you is not very good, as long as the raw materials are provided enough, she can still make the potion for you. So, are you accusing Daniel and Anya of being the murderers who framed those humans?" This time it was Austin's turn to interrupt Tia. However, as soon as he said this, Ruger felt a little weird. It seems that this guy wants to set up a trap to lure Tia into it. But it was too late for him to remind Tia, the bomb girl had already shouted. "That's right. The two of them must be related to this matter. Where's the evidence?" Although the paladin still had a gloomy face, Ruger immediately caught the flash of joy in his eyes. "I warn you, you are not only accusing two Nephilim warriors, they are also members of the Knights Templar and law enforcers of Rogue Town. If you have no evidence and just framed the two people out of thin air, then you still violated the laws of Rogue Town, and falsely accusing law enforcement officers is aggravated." "Oh, that's it?" Hearing that Austin was still using their set of rules to pressure people, Ruger was slightly relieved. And Tia was not panicked at all, but laughed instead. "Ha, are you threatening me? Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 138. "Okay, stop talking so much," Tia waved her hand. "Google search reading. You and I both know why they do what they do. You and I both know that now that things have reached this point, they cannot end well. Then, don't waste your time. Don't you keep talking about sacredness, justice, and judgment. Let's follow the tradition of Rogue Town and have a truly sacred judgment." "What?" As soon as these words came out, everyone on the scene was shocked. "You mean, the divine judgment of Rogue Town? Oh no, Rogue Camp?" Austin also asked in disbelief. "Divine judgment, generally the better the name and the more grandiose the name, the bloodier and crueler it is behind it. Fortunately this time it was a little lighter. This thing is just a judicial duel like an alien plane. The so-called judicial duel means that the factual investigation is unclear, or simply too lazy to investigate clearly. The public says that the public is right and the wife is right, but the third party cannot distinguish the truth from the false. So, let the two parties engage in a duel. the winner is considered to have received God's blessing and is judged to be righteous by God. The loser dies. Tingti Ya finally called this thing out, and Luge let out a sigh of relief. This is also one of the plans they made in advance. Originally, it was said that if we really can't reach an agreement, we should just use force as a last resort. Anyway, the three of them are now confident enough in their fighting ability. But at that time, Lugger saw Taya's eager expression and understood that this hot-tempered little guy would only deliberately make things happen as a last resort. Now it's really like this. We didn't reach an agreement in 2 or 3 sentences, and then we just opened up. However, Lugger thought about it and felt that this was actually not bad. On the one hand, he has confidence in the combat power of the three of them, at least they are much more powerful than the witch and the bald paladin. On the other hand, he didn't have to worry about Tia being plotted by Austin, the paladin captain who was obviously an old fox. Since Tia has played the card of divine judgment, it is obvious that she is really determined to cut through the mess quickly, and it is a good thing to resolve these matters quickly. What, are you scared? Seeing everyone on the paladin side looking shocked, Tia couldn't help but smile. Don't worry, according to the tradition of Rogtown, the divine judgment must determine the winner, but it does not necessarily have to determine life and death. With your abilities, it's still possible to survive. This is pure provoking method. What did you say? Do you think I'm afraid of you? Let's see who will die. The bald paladin became a little excited when he heard the words holy judgment, and now he even shouted excitedly. Come on, come with me to judge. Daniel, shut up, Silver Shining Austin quickly scolded his men, looked at Tia and asked. Are you serious? Do you really want to use divine judgment to resolve this matter? Certainly. And, I can let you three come together. Tia said. After all, I have 2 criminals accused, so it's better to deal with them all at once. Look, there are 3 people on my side, and there are at least 2 prisoners on your side, plus 1 person who can defend them. We can solve the problem directly 3 to 3. How great! Is this a good thing? Silver Sparkle looked at Tia uncertainly, and then looked at Minerva and Lugger carefully. He was shocked to find that none of the 3 people's eyes flickered, and they all looked confident. Is it possible that these 3 people have some big moves that can be used together? Can they exert a power of 1 add 1 that is much greater than 3? Austin thought for a long time and felt that he could not dance with the enemy. He looked up at Tia and said word by word. Holy Judgment, 1 versus 1, 3 games. 2 out of 3 games, the winner will get justice and the loser will serve his sentence. He could break up the 3-man group battle into 3 single battles. In this way, even if there is any problem, he can make adjustments in time. More importantly, this allows you to guard against the opponent's collective ultimate move. If you accept, let's go to the ring, he emphasized at the end. When Tia heard what he said, she felt a little pity. Do you want to say that the 3 of them have the kind of ultimate skills that Austin is guarding against? Can't say no. For example, if you move the tank out and 3 people sit on it to cover the battlefield with firepower, is this considered a big move? It definitely counts. However, for a similar level of ultimate move, either she or Lugger could unleash a very similar version on their own. She has a belt-fed high-velocity grenade launcher, and the Ruger has more goodies. Therefore, even if the 3 of them cannot go together, the result will not change much. So Tia immediately replied, accept it? Of course I accept it. However, there is no need to go to the ring, just do it on the guillotine. The first game, I'll do it. Tia was about to step forward to join the battle, but was interrupted by Lugger's voice behind her. As soon as she turned around and looked over, she saw that Luigi had already jumped onto the wooden platform in 2 or 3 steps. Tia was still waiting to fight, but she heard Luigi coming over and said, how can the general take action in the first game? Seeing what he said, Tia had no choice but to make room with a smile, go down with Minerva, and evacuate the humans who had just been declared innocent. On the other side, after Silver turned around and muttered to the people around him for a while, the bald paladin stepped out first and jumped onto the wooden platform in 2 steps. "Boy, don't think that I can win just because you attacked me just now. I'll show you the real power of the paladin." Ruger almost burst out laughing when he heard this. "I thought to myself, if you hadn't taken the shield handed over by your boss, we would have considered you a person. Okay, let me see the real power of your paladin." "The real power of the paladin is his shield, right? Why does it feel like some kind of cold-blooded reptile with a shell?" Not only did he think so, the spectators around him also started to complain. Basically, this guy just wanted to slaughter innocent humans, and now he shamelessly raised someone else's shield and said he wanted to show people his strength. It's really a shame for the paladin. However, the crowd who were saying these words had no intention of interrupting the duel, but pointed at the stage excitedly. They had come here to watch the beheading today, but they found that the person who was to be beheaded was declared innocent. They thought that today would be boring, but they didn't expect that the Holy Judgment would appear. Holy Judgment, it is possible to see heads being cut off. Moreover, the person who was cut off this time was not an ordinary human, but a powerful Nephilim. The audience was excited just thinking about it. What does this feel like? It's like I thought I came out to watch a short movie, but I ended up catching up with a freaking level concert. This is really worth it? Listening to the various sneers and sarcasms around him, the bald paladin Daniel's face turned pale. However, if he was asked to put down his shield, it would be impossible. He saw with his own eyes the expression of exhaustion and surprise on his boss's face when he took the guy's shot. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 139. Even if my boss uses an artifact level shield to hit that guy with a cannonball, he will be knocked out. So, is it okay if he doesn't use a shield? Bald Daniel is bloodthirsty and arrogant, but he is not stupid. He is shrewd when it comes to issues involving his own life. The question of choosing between being killed or being humiliated simply did not exist for him. Definitely choose the latter. What's more, hasn't he been humiliated enough? Didn't you just get a lesson from your boss? As the saying goes, as long as he doesn't embarrass himself, others will be embarrassed. As long as you pretend to be proud, you might be able to make the other party angry to death. Thinking of this, the bald head immediately returned to his previous arrogant and domineering look, looking at Lugger with his nostrils raised to the sky. That way, the more you owe, the more you owe. Is Ruger angry? It seems to be okay. The main reason is that he is basically carrying a large arsenal with him, and the enemy he is least afraid of is this defensive type. This man gave up his strategic initiative of his own accord. Luge didn't even have time to snicker secretly. How could he be so angry? Are you ready? Lugger stared at the bald head holding the shield as if absent-mindedly, and asked casually as if he didn't care. This actually means that you are ready. Seeing him like this, Tia was not humble and immediately shouted like a referee, "Get ready." Seeing that the others had no objection to her shouting, she immediately shouted the second part, "Start." As soon as Tia finished speaking, Lugger immediately pulled out the rapid-fire cannon and fired an armor-piercing incendiary bomb at the bald shield. Base. As soon as he heard this voice, Lugger knew that the guy could indeed block his attack with his shield. It was exactly the same as the sound he made when he used a shotgun bullet to kill nightmare zombies. On the other side, the bald man who tried his best to block the cannonball was also secretly rubbing his numb shield hand while screaming something bad. His shield is indeed a highly defensive artifact made of magic crystals. But as Ruger discovered before, if you want to unleash the true strength of this equipment, you also need to rely on the user's own abilities. Paladin Captain Austin can easily block an explosive incendiary bomb from Lugger with this shield, but that doesn't mean that Bald Daniel can block it so easily. Fortunately, the shield was big enough to completely cover his own embarrassment and not be directly exposed. So he still pretended to be as arrogant as before, pretending to be relaxed and provocative. Huh? That's all you have? Humph. It's just a lost person, it's just a weapon with a higher attack power. When the weapon becomes inoperable, this person will be useless. So, you lost ones deserve to be exterminated by the evil spirit. You are simply a species eliminated by the gods. The damage his words did to Lugger was basically zero, but to the onlookers who had just raised some hope, it was no less than being slapped directly in the face with a big-eared razor. 1 second ago, no matter what they said, the onlookers were more or less fantasizing about one day picking up the weapons of the lost and building a new home in the wild by their own abilities. A second after the result, their fantasies were shattered by the cruel facts. It turns out that even with the weapons of the lost, they have little chance of defeating the Nephilim like the Paladin. For a moment, the surroundings fell into an eerie silence. But people are very good at adjusting their mentality. When they find that their dreams have been shattered and that one party on the court is not someone they can offend, they naturally use the other party as a tool to vent their emotions. Idiot. What a weakling. Since you can't beat me, why do you have to come out and embarrass yourself? Why don't you die? Die quickly. Oops, I'll go. Luge cursed secretly. Although he didn't like these humans who had no resistance but liked to watch beheading, he couldn't say how disgusted he was before. But when he saw that they were actually biting him, Luge felt a sense of absurdity arise spontaneously. Noticing that the tone of the onlookers around him had changed, the bald paladin was even more proud and began to provoke him even harder. Seeing this, everyone on the paladin side became even more proud, and even the female warrior Minerva became worried for Lugger. She even started discussing with Tia about playing in place of Lugger herself. However, Tia did not agree to him. Instead, she patted her arm with a relaxed expression, indicating that she would just wait and watch the show. If compared to the trust in Lugger's combat power, I am afraid that even Lugger himself is not as good as Tia. How about it, are you stupid? The bald paladin is still provoking. If you don't want to die, just admit defeat quickly. Haha, get under my crotch and kowtow to me 3 more times, and I will allow you to admit defeat. Well, what you mean is that as long as you don't admit defeat, you shouldn't complain even if you are beaten to death, right? Ruger sighed angrily. Haha, do you understand this truth now? Are you afraid? If you are, kneel down before me. The bald paladin became even more arrogant after hearing this, and did not notice the flash of anger in the eyes of his boss not far away. And the idiot, that came out of his mouth. Okay, since you say so, I'm relieved. Ruger smiled, pushed the rapid-fire gun upward with his backhand, and put it back to the bag on his back. When he withdrew his right hand, he reached down and pulled out a 6-barrel grenade launcher from his waist. Hey, it's still time to surrender now, otherwise, I don't have the ability to spare your life. Ruger chuckled. Haha, are you an idiot? Just relying on you, you want me to surrender? Daydreaming. Before he finished the word dream, Ruger had already raised the launcher. Bang bang bang. All 6 grenades were fired in just over a second. To be honest, the speed of these 6 grenades was not fast, and the trajectory was also quite bad. Either the trajectory was too high, and it took a long time to fall after flying into the sky, or the trajectory was too low, and it hit the cracks in the wood under his feet directly. 6 grenades, none of them hit the shield. Ha ha ha. That's it? You can't hit it even at such a close distance. The bald paladin just saw him firing, and felt somewhat guilty. He swallowed the words that were on his lips before he finished speaking. However, now that he found that his weapon didn't hit him at all, the bald Daniel instantly became arrogant again. Ruger, on the other hand, laughed and whispered explosion. With this sound, 6 grenades that were about to fall near the back of the bald man's head and in the wood cracks under his feet exploded at the same time. Snap! The next moment, 6 steel pestle-like objects actually hit the back of this man's head at the same time, making his laughter stop abruptly. Surprisingly, it was killed instantly. What? What is that thing? Daniel. No, Paladin Daniel was killed by him. As the bald paladin fell to the ground, the people around him immediately discovered the 6 steel pestles behind his head and couldn't help but exclaimed. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 140. What kind of sorcery is this? You can actually do this without losing your weapon. Isn't this too awesome? Isn't the paladin's shield going to be useless? The spectators who had previously mocked Lugger began to marvel when they saw the situation turn 180 degrees again. However, whether it was the paladin side who had lost the game or the onlookers who were amazed by the power of the Lost One's weapons, they all looked at Lugger with a mixture of fear and fear. It was as if they were looking at some kind of human devil. This guy is definitely not a human being. Well, Lugger didn't feel much about the way everyone looked at the monster. He never cared about these people from the beginning, so why should he care about their arrogance in front and respect in others, or their contempt in front and fear in others? He was just lamenting one thing in his heart right now. The self-forged warhead combined with telekinesis is really powerful. The so-called self-forging fragmentation warhead, which is the explosively formed projectile warhead, is very similar in principle to the Monroe explosive, which is the armor-piercing projectile. It's just that instead of blasting the raw material into a metal jet, the metal raw material is blasted into a steel pestle, and then the steel pestle is shot out like an armor-piercing projectile. There is no need to mention the details, but one thing is the same as the Monroe explosive. The lethality of this thing is concentrated in one direction and needs to be aimed at the target. In other words, the warhead of this ammunition must be pointed at the target to effectively hit. It is not effective as long as the target is within the explosion range like fragmentation bombs. Under normal circumstances, if you want this kind of ammunition to be fired accurately, you also need many supporting auxiliary tools. But Lugger didn't have enough of this kind of thing on hand, so he had to use his own superpower, telekinesis, to make up the number. The reason why he shoots grenades into the sky and onto the ground is to facilitate him to use his telekinesis ability to adjust the direction of the warheads of these ammunition. Just now, the bald paladin was full of provocation. He had no idea that six death bullets were aimed at the back of his head under the control of Lugger's telekinesis. As a result, boom, the 6 sounds turned into one sound, causing him to shut his mouth forever. As long as there are only 1 or 2, maybe this person can withstand it with his defense. As a result, 6 of them were hit at the same time. The defensive force field transformed by magic power could not withstand the impact of so much energy, and in the end, not one of them was stopped. This is indeed not an even battle. You bastard, you are so much better than him, yet you deliberately kill him. After confirming that Bald Daniel was completely dead, someone from the paladin side immediately stood up and accused Lugger. Before the person involved could say anything, Taya shouted first, "What? If you find out that you lost the fight, you have to lie around and deny it, right? We have just warned him in advance, and reminded him twice before and after, asking him to surrender quickly if he doesn't want to die, so as not to be blind. It was because he misjudged his own strength that he ended up like this. But, I still want to say that even so, he at least defended his last dignity and dignity by dying. Now, are you trying to take away his last trace of dignity and dignity? Is this your way of being a paladin? Beautifully said. When Luodu heard this, he immediately gave Taya a sign of approval secretly. He really didn't expect that this little girl Taya was originally a confused little girl who loved eating and playing with bombs, but now she talks in different ways. This mouth is getting more and more powerful. I don't know who I learned it from. Well, with whom? On the other side, those who had been robbed by Tia's words and who had just planned to use Bald Daniel's death to forcefully slap Lugger and deny the result of this competition could only keep their mouths shut unwillingly. Tia's hat is also placed exactly on the 7 inches of the paladins. Seeing this situation, even Silver Shining Austin had nothing to say. He took back the shield with a sullen face, glared at Lugger again, and then called his companions to take away the bald body and return to its original position. As soon as he returned, the witch Anya stood up immediately. Lugger did not stop her, but silently watched her walk up to the guillotine, then nodded and said, "We meet again, Lord Witch." "You are dead today," the witch Anya said gloomily. "I will definitely send you to confess to Daniel." Luodu also wanted to laugh when he heard this, thinking that since these guys call themselves the Holy Knight Order, they must believe in God, right? Don't theistic religions generally treat them differently when describing the afterlife? Believers go to heaven, pagans go to hell. Sincere believers go to heaven, but duplicitous believers go to hell. Wait. As a result, according to this woman's words, Hija would meet Bald Daniel even if he died. So is she despising Daniel, or is she looking up to Ruger? He just opened his mouth to tease the witch, but he heard Austin from the paladin side shouting first, "Ready, start." Okay, the established rule in relationships is that one party shouts once to start. Lugger was a little slow to react due to this situation. As a result, in the blink of an eye, the witch on the opposite side took advantage of him and launched a move. He just felt a lightning-like light flash before his eyes, and found that the witch Anya in front of him was gone. Be careful, that guy also specializes in the lightning system and has learned how to teleport. Tia reminded loudly from the outside. Teleport. Move instantly. Ruger understood immediately. At this moment, he regretted a little for not bringing Old Noisy to the ring. At first, he thought that Old Noisy was not his pet but Tia's, and bringing him to the ring always felt like two people bullying one. But when the bald paladin came over with his boss's artifact shield, Ruger felt that he was still a little too reasonable. It was really uncomfortable to reason with these bandits and robbers who spoke in high-sounding words on the surface but did everything they could to achieve their goals. Reason should be spoken to reasonable people. It was unreasonable to reason with this group of unreasonable people. If there was Old Noisy to keep watch behind him, the tactical effect of the witch's lightning magic teleportation would be directly eliminated by more than half. But even so, Ruger did not have no tricks to deal with her. In a flash, he tapped his waist slightly, and the tank-like smoke bombs were fired from the leg armor of both legs. 6 rounds. These 6 smoke bombs were fired diagonally upward at the same time, and the thick smoke was like a hood covering Ruger. It takes a long time for the smoke bomb to emit thick smoke. Taking this opportunity, Anya, who flashed behind Ruger, had already condensed the ice spear magic. It was a pity that the previous experience of Bald Daniel might have had a great impact on her. Seeing Ruger casually fired 6 more rounds of ammunition that were very similar to the previous ones, which Anya immediately became alert. She should have focused her attention and aimed at the ice spear that was fired, but she threw it out just when she saw the outline of Ruger. She immediately used teleportation to avoid it.